The single-leaf pinyon pine, or Pinus monophylla, is a slow-growing species of pine tree that spans the dry mountain ranges of Nevada, parts of California, Utah, Arizona, and Idaho. It is the predominant species of tree in the Great Basin. It is a hardy tree that grows between the elevations of 1,000 and 2,800 meters above sea level. They play an essential role in the ecosystem, providing things such as wildlife habitats and watershed protection. It is also an essential food source not only for wildlife, such as the pinyon jay, but also for the indigenous peoples of the Great Basin and beyond, such as the Washoe, Paiute, and Shoshone peoples. I was lucky enough to travel to Schurz, Nevada, to the traditional homelands of the Walker River Paiute tribe, to the Pine Nut Festival, in order to learn more about this important plant relative firsthand.
My name is Sherry Rupert, and I am Paiute and Washoe from Nevada, and I'm the CEO for the American Indian Alaska Native Tourism Association. This is the annual Pine Nut Festival here at the Walker River Paiute Tribe in Schurz, Nevada. It's an annual event that they put together to bless the pine nuts in the area. This is the time that the pine nuts are harvested by our native people around the area, and so this has been around a long time, and it's a great way to bring all of our tribal communities together to acknowledge and thank Mother Nature for the pine nuts. I remember, as a small child going pine nut picking with my family and my grandparents and my aunts and uncles and my cousins, and it was really it's just heartwarming to be around your entire family. And it's not just about going and picking a nut off of a tree. It's much, much more than that. It's about coming together as a community, coming together as a family, and learning about the pine nuts and what they mean to our people, how the pine nuts were sustenance for our people. And if we didn't have those and weren't able to harvest those in the fall time and make them into flour for the winter time, our people would not survive. So those nuts are much more than just a nut. They were so much more important to our people than I think most people realize. And so when we went out with the family, we learned songs, we learned stories, we learned why we're picking these pine nuts from my grandmother. Speaking Paiute to us and telling us those stories. And my grandmother was one of the few people in our family that spoke fluent Paiute and spoke only Paiute. And so, just hearing the language, hearing the stories, and seeing the process of picking pine nuts with the big lodge poles. Well, first of all, they'd put tarps underneath the trees. They'd take the big lodge poles and hit the trees so the pine cones would fall down and the pine nuts would fall down onto the tarp there. And then we'd gather them all up. Sometimes if they were really ready, some of my aunts would sit there and hit the pine cones so that way the pine nuts would fall out. And then us little kids would go under the trees and gather all of those pine nuts and put them into containers so that way we could take them home.
Native people also collected cones by bending branches down using a curved stick. The lodgepole tapping method can also be seen here. These harvesting methods are still used today. The pine nuts can be eaten raw, but are also processed in a variety of ways. The nuts were often cooked, deshelled, and then ground into a flour that could be stored and then added to water for soup. They are an essential source of proteins, minerals, vitamins, and fats. Maggie Lent Johnson explains some of her favorite memories of preparing the pine nuts with her family.
But for me, I like watching the cooking process. When we were kids, we would gather and then we would watch our family dig a hole in the ground, and then we put it in there, and then they would cover it with the hot rocks and stuff like that in my grandma's backyard, and they would cook them.
As well as being an important food staple, the pine nuts are also used in jewelry and adornments. Maggie is an artisan who uses them in her crafts.
Well, I was taught by all my family members, my aunts, uncles, different elders in our family. The pine nuts are gathered from either Yosemite Paiute pine nuts or from the other side where our Mono side is from. But we have some that you can eat and then some that are for crafts.
And do you think it's important to have a festival dedicated to the pine nut?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I believe so. Because we do the blessings and, I personally, I believe in God and, I say my own prayer. Let us have a, plentiful harvest this year. And we had one.